said, "Shall I introduce a believer to you? A believer is the one whom believers trust with their souls and wealth. Shall I introduce a Muslim to you? A Muslim is the one from whose hand and tongue other Muslims are safe." Our first speaker is Sayyid Murtada Naqvi. His lineage goes back to the Prophet ﷺ through the 10th Imam, Imam AlNabi. He has completed a bachelor's degree in Islamic studies with Arabic language and a master in religious and theology. He has studied under Sister Amina in-laws Sheikh Abbas Jafar, Sheikh Mustafa Jafar, Ayatollah Fadl Milani, Ayatollah Hakim, Dr. Paya, and Dr. Misbah. He attempts through his lectures to analyze both social, spiritual, and theological topics. He has also studied under Sayyid Naqshbandi. Please let's welcome him with a loud salawat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على وصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب الحمد لله الذي لا يحتف حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله أما بعد فيقول الله في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة. Please can we have a loud salawat in honor of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Brothers and sisters, respected elders, scholars, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When you look at the topic of akhlaq, or indeed ilmul akhlaq within itself, it's a very beautiful topic that many people don't discuss and many people don't focus on. You find that many people within their lives, they have extensive knowledge of fiqh, they have extensive knowledge of philosophy or mysticism, or all the different ulums within Islam. The akhlaq many people don't focus on. And it's something that we've lost within ourselves, that we have not focused on akhlaq when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself came to perfect our akhlaq. Indeed, there are many beautiful reciters of the Quran, and there are many beautiful people who read nasheed and poetry and latmiya and all such things, and they have voices like the voices of the doves. But if we do not have good akhlaq, then what is the point of doing anything at all? For our Prophet of God, like I said, came to perfect our akhlaq. And indeed, within his life for 63 years, you find he left this beautiful legacy that each and every one of us are here today remembering his name, remembering his ideas, remembering every part and aspect of his life. You find within those 63 years, it can be divided into two. The 40 years, which were seen as internal, and the latter 23, which were seen as external. So why do I say this? I say this because when you look at his life, the first 40 years, he was there, he was talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he found solace in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he did not make his message public. It was a private message, only few people knew about this message. But you find the latter 23, it became public. And that's where he began to face hardships and troubles and problems within his life. But you find that when you look at this 63 years, character and faith was built in the times of ease and expressed in the times of hardship. That those 23 years showed the character and the faith of the Prophet of God. That many people, and indeed you could argue some of the prophets as well, they would have probably crumbled under all that pressure. It wasn't easy. And therefore you find that the Prophet of God says himself that there was no prophet who had trials and tribulations like me. And even you find that his daughter, the trials and tribulations that she went through was so hard that she said that the days would have turned into nights. So you find that it shows that those 40 years the Prophet built him up in such a manner, built himself up, and indeed Allah brought him up in such a way that he could face all these trials and all these problems without even disbelieving or going away from the path of Islam for even the twinkling of an eye. And there's no doubt that even before he came into prophethood, made his prophethood external, because obviously we know that prophethood he got when he was born, you find that those 40 years he was still regarded as Sadiq and Amin. He was known as truthful and trustworthy. See, the thing is, when you look at akhlaq, these are the true pillars, because that was the first two things that the Prophet was recognized under. Before he he told people that he was a prophet, people regarded him as truthful and Amin. So you could argue that these are the true basic criteria of anyone who's trying to get into the path of akhlaq. That if you're not Sadiq and you're not Amin, then you have to question yourself that it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have within your life. If you haven't done these two things yet, then everything else you could argue is futile. Because these are the basics and these are the foundations of the religion. And therefore you find that even those people who hated the Prophet, they would still give their trusts, give their, for example, jewelry and all the expensive things that they had to the Prophet. Why? Because he was Sadiq. It doesn't matter if he was the enemy. But because he had these true characteristics, people did not speak bad of him. They hated his message, but still they couldn't hate the personality himself. And therefore, before you're a mu'min, indeed before you're even a Muslim, when you trying to be a human being, you have to have these true characteristics. That if you don't have these two characteristics, then we could argue that, have we even understood what it is to be a human being? Many of us, we come and we say, we're Muslims and we follow the Prophet. But it's all well and good saying something externally when internally the situation is completely different. I remember one of the teachers in ICAS, they used to give the example. He goes, Muhammad, there's no point of exfoliating outside and getting rid of all the blackheads and all the problems of your skin when inside you haven't done any exfoliation in your life. There's no point. There's no point of covering stuff up, all respect to everyone, covering stuff up with makeup and everything else when inside there's no light coming out. I remember one teacher, one of the girls, she came into the class and she was wearing quite a lot of foundation that day. So the teacher turned around and said to him, there's a hadith by the Imam. She goes, what's the hadith by the 6th Imam? What's the hadith? He goes, if you pray Salat al-Layl, right, the light within will begin to shine on your face. He goes, why do people look for the easy route? Because I can paint my face white as well, but if you want to be in that level within yourself, then why don't you try to earn it rather than going for the easy option? That's just a side point in the lecture of akhlaq. So you find that there's no point of delving into all these different sciences when the akhlaq is not proper. And that's why a man came towards the Prophet of God and said, what is religion and what is faith to you? So he asked him from the front, and the Prophet said, akhlaq. He asked him from behind, akhlaq, from the side, akhlaq. Then he asked him again, and the Prophet said, oh man, why don't you understand that unless you have akhlaq, unless you don't have akhlaq, you have nothing within your life. That these are the essence of religion. And therefore, we just want to look into 3 points within this lecture, looking into akhlaq and looking at the life of the Prophet and looking at his akhlaq within his life. The first point I want to look into is, why was the Prophet seen as a prophet? As in, what key characteristics? And there's so many, don't get me wrong, there's so many, but I'm going to mention only a few. 2, what did Amir al-Mu'mineen say about the characteristics and the way the Prophet used to live? Because if you want to know someone, then you have to find the closest person and they tell you about that personality. Thirdly, what personality traits equate to good akhlaq and therefore high levels of spirituality? So therefore, brothers and sisters, on the first point I want to look into is patience. In the Quran it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. That Allah, surely Allah is with the patient ones, the ones who are patient. So you find in the life of the Prophet, he was patient in all instances. Every single instance, he was patient. The first sort of patience they encountered was with his own family. For example, the Da'watul Dhul Ashira, what happened? Family came, they ate and they left. Family came, they ate and they left. So eventually you had to use different tactics to make them stay. And that's exactly why we use this tactic here today, that we serve the food afterwards, not before. So everyone stays for this lectures. Right, so this is what's happening here. That he was patient firstly with his family, and then he was patient with who? The people of Makkah. That there's one key example that I always remember, and the most beautiful example that I can give you is when that woman in Makkah used to throw rubbish on the Prophet and used to throw rubbish in the path of Rasulullah. But he never used to say anything, and one day she fell ill. When she fell ill, brothers and sisters, the Prophet went and she said that, have you come to ridicule me? Have you come to insult me? The Prophet said, no, I've come to see how you are. To which she became a Muslim. You find that sometimes within our lives, we have to be patient. In the Quran it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna amwalakum wa awladakum fitna. That sometimes your possessions, surely your possessions and your children, and indeed everything else, people around you, everything in your life is a trial. But you find that within these trials, sometimes you don't get the fruits of your labor straight away. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to be patient for a lengthy period of time before you can get the fruits of your labor. And that's the thing, have we been patient enough? Sometimes we've been patient for a week and we start comparing, Allah, you said be patient, you're with the patient ones, but where's my fruits of my labor? It's not here yet. We have to be patient to gain these things. And that's why I remember a beautiful maxim by Amir al-Mu'mineen, who was probably taught by the Prophet himself. He said, I'll be patient till even patience tires of my patience. So I don't know what level of patience that is. Maybe the other speakers can explain what level that is, but I can't comprehend such a level. That you're patient, but you're more patient even than patience. So, does that come under forbearance, or even is forbearance a smaller word? Is that not enough? So, these things are the things that distinguish the Prophet from all the other prophets, and indeed the Imams, and make him the greatest human being ever to come upon this earth. There's no doubt about it. But another trait that he had was that he would always push himself beyond that which he needed to do. Why? It says in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Taha, ma anzalna ilayka al-Qur'ana litashqa. Taha. Those things that are hard for you, you have to face these hardships within your life. The Quran is not put there to make your life hard. It wasn't there to make your life hard. But the Quran would give, for example, say Salat al-Layl is wajib for you. The Prophet would pray more than he needed to do. That the Quran, it says pray part of the night. The Prophet would pray lengthy parts of that night. But you find that this is the thing, see, when you want to reach that next level, when you want to be above every other prophet, every other being upon this earth, then you have to sacrifice something. Many of us, we want to be religious, we want to go towards religiosity, but we don't want to sacrifice. We don't want to take those additional steps, because you have to push yourself to the extent that you can't do no more, and then once you can't do no more, then you have to take those extra steps. And until you don't do that, then you won't be able to gain that position that you want to be, where you want to be within your life. And therefore you find that this is what true love is. Because they say love knows no limitation. There's no such thing as impossibility in love. And the Prophet recognized that. He recognized that when I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then if I need to read the Quran in a period of 5 hours, then I can do that. Why? Because it's only a limitation of the mind. Once I can surpass my mind, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will assist me in every single thing that I do. But we have to take that first step. See, that's the hard part, taking the first step. And the reality is, brothers and sisters, that many of us, we don't give time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we should. That we make so many excuses under the sun. We like to blame other people. Because if we think that we're going to gain akhlaq, that we're going to gain religiosity within our life, and our neighbour's going to do it for us, it's not going to happen. Our mother's going to do it, it's not going to happen. Our father, our friends, it's not going to happen. You are the one who has to gain that religiosity. You are the one who has to do that. I can't do it for you. No one can do it for you. You have to do it yourself. And that's the thing. And indeed all of us have to do it. It's not just you guys, it includes me. But it's when you make excuses. And excuses is probably the number one killer. I couldn't pray Salat al-Layl. Why? Because I'm tired. I couldn't, for example, pray Fajr. Why? Because I had to wake up. Fajr was at, for example, 6:45, and I had to wake up at work at 7 a.m. and I needed that 15 minutes extra sleep because I can't function without when I'm working. I can't function without that 15 minutes. You have to make those sacrifices, and you have to remember Allah constantly. And that's why in the Quran, in chapter 59, verse 19, it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. That those of you who forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will cause you to forget yourself. And those are people of the sinners. So this is the thing, brothers and sisters. We need to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala night and day. That if we want to get to that level of akhlaq, and we want to gain patience and generosity and being kind and being good, this is the foundation. The foundation is the akhlaq, but you can only have good akhlaq if you continuously remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You continuously remember the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when you be rude to someone, remember that that's a creature of Allah. It doesn't matter who they are, mother, father, friend, cousin, family, beg on the street, doesn't make a difference. Every single thing on this earth is a creation of Allah, and therefore they should be respected. But the question is, we don't do this. We like to have days off. That there's certain books that have certain hadith that say, there's certain days that you can have days off from religion. There's no need to mention books and names. But there's certain hadith out there say that you can have days off on these days. For example, the day of Eid, it's a day off for you. But there are certain hadith fluttering around out there in books. We find that there's no days off in the religion. Is there a day off in being good? There's never a day off in being good. Because if you take a day off in being good, either it's a wasted day or you become bad. It's one or the other, isn't it? There's no three ways about it. I was going to say 2 ways, but obviously there's 3 ways now. Just create another way. So you find that, brothers and sisters, this is the thing. We need to push ourselves. Like I mentioned, that we think that akhlaq is going to come because our mother is going to bring us up right. And inshallah, we pray that they do bring us up right so that we do have good akhlaq. And it does contribute to that. I'm not saying it doesn't. But if you want greatness, if you want good akhlaq and you want religiosity, then it has to come from inside. Many of us, we're quick to blame shaitan. We're quick to blame. But it's not shaitan's fault. He's just whispering to you, suggesting ideas to you. The person who makes the end decision is ourselves. And therefore, look at the egg. So why is he talking about an egg? It's a lecture about akhlaq, what's wrong with it? But he's talking about an egg. Why? Because if you look at the egg and you break it from the outside, then life is finished. Life is killed. But if the egg breaks from the inside, then life is given. So using this analogy, brothers and sisters, if you want religiosity, then it has to come from within. Don't expect it to come from outside. You have to work towards it. It's not easy, but you have to do it yourselves. And until we don't look at, for example, the character of the Prophet, we don't look at the life of the Prophet, we don't look at the life of Fatima, we don't look at the life of the Ahl al-Bayt, and indeed the companions, then we will never be able to reach that position within our life. We won't. Because you have to have the most clean source, the most pure source. And until you don't have that source and you're gaining information from somewhere else, then there will always be some dirt on that source. So we need to go towards the Ahl al-Bayt. And that brings me to my second point. See, why do I talk about Amir al-Mu'mineen? I could have got it from any other person. Why Amir al-Mu'mineen? The reason to why I said Amir al-Mu'mineen, he should tell us about the characteristics of the Prophet, is because he was brought up by the Prophet. He slept in the same bed as the Prophet. He was the one who was there with the Prophet when everyone else left him. He was the one that was there.
And indeed, if you try to gain information from somewhere else, then they won't be able to tell you properly about the life of the Prophet. Only the people who have lived with the Prophet, only the people involved in 33 and 33 in the Quran can tell you who the Prophet really is. Either them or Allah. So if anyone's got a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving ilham, inshallah, speak to me after the lecture, inshallah. We'll talk and you can tell me what the Prophet was like. But for now we'll have to suffice with this hadith by Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi that he says the Prophet did never shake hands with anyone and took off his hands first. Now sometimes, brothers and sisters, we shake hands with people and we're just like, just like that. There's no love, there's no affection towards that brother or indeed that sister. No crossover, okay? No crossover. I'm just talking about one gender here, just in case you guys misquote me later. So when you shake hands with someone, show love and affection towards that person. Don't just shake hands quickly. Sometimes you have someone from this side of the room and some from that side of the room, and they never shake hands with each other. Why? Because they hate each other. But that's not how we should live. That's bad akhlaq to one another. Remember, character and faith is built in the times of ease. So what do we need to do? We need to get off Facebook and Twitter and spending all our life on these. Wallah, some people need to get off their phone. Yes, I see you texting. You need to get off your phone, and sometimes we just need to listen and say, you know what? We need to stop wasting our time, because if we don't recognize the value of time, then how are we supposed to perfect our akhlaq? How are we supposed to learn about the religion a little bit more? So he never shook hands with someone and he took away the hand first. No one talked with him about something and he left first. Sometimes someone comes towards you and he asks you questions, he wants to get to know you, and you're like, Wallah bro, I need to go somewhere, I can't be asked with you. Yeah, we've done it, we've all done it before. Yeah, you think to yourself, why is this guy talking to me, man? There's a million people here, why did he have to find me? Right? But this is the thing, the akhlaq of the Prophet says, if someone comes to talk to you, then you should be the last one to leave. I'm not saying both of you stay there all day, right? Because that's not good either. But you should be the last one to leave. Why? Because it shows good akhlaq towards that person. It shows that you have an interest in that person. See, these are the things that we need to work on within our life. He would never interrupt anyone whilst they spoke. See, for me, this is a big one. Because when you're speaking and people are speaking over you, it's not very nice. It's very rude. It's not a very good thing to do. Even for example, when you're talking and there's 3 people talking and 2 people are talking, and then the third one just randomly just keeps saying something. So wait your turn. Have patience. Because if you don't have patience, brothers and sisters, then someone will turn around and say, I remember some youngster, he was having a conversation and I was watching this, and he said, listen, the guy kept interrupting them. So he goes, listen mate, this is the A and B conversation, so see you later. Right? If you don't want someone to be rude towards you, then be respectful of the conversation that they're having. So you're going to say, when someone says that to you, you're saying, how rude. But you are the one who were rude in the first place. Yes, what he done was wrong, there's no doubt about that. But we need to understand that we need to have respect for each and every person who wants to speak. He was never seen stretching his legs before anyone sitting with him. I think this is the number one killer in the majalis. You see so many people, brothers and sisters, they're stretching their legs. Even in gatherings, doesn't matter where they are, they're stretching their legs. See, this is seen as something that's rude. It's seen as disrespectful. It's something that we should refrain from within our life. When 2 things occurred before him, he chose the severest of them. See, when you have a choice between 2 things, many of us were quick to choose the easy path. And I like to give this example. That you have a choice to either go upstream or downstream. Downstream, either there's going to be a river, there's going to be a sea, there's probably just mud there. You know what's downstream. But brothers and sisters, when you go upstream, you don't know what's going to be at the end. It could be something so magnanimous and so beautiful that you've never seen it within your life. But you'll never know about that thing until you take that path upstream, until you take the harder path. The harder path is what? To sleep through. The easy path is to what? Harder path. The easy path is what? To sleep through Fajr. That's the easy path. Everyone can do that. Anyone can do that. Non-Muslims do it all the time. It's not something difficult. See, when you come into the realm of Islam, then you recognize that I now am going to sacrifice who I was for what I want to become. That's what it is. Anyone can say that I believe in Allah and I believe in the Prophet and I believe in, for example, the Imam. Anyone can say that. That's not something big. But until we don't act that, then we haven't really reached that level that we need to reach within our life. He did not avenge himself whilst being wronged unless it was for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, sometimes someone says something to us. Well, sometimes someone looks at us in a funny way. And we start getting angry, we start attacking that person, we start being rude to that person. You know, sometimes when you read majalis and you're lecturing in the front, some people are giving you evil eyes. But you know, I don't turn around and say, listen mate, what are you doing? Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not going to say that. Because it's bad etiquette. It's not a good moral structure to have. You know, we need to understand, brothers and sisters, that when someone avenges you, then why are you going to take vengeance? What's the point? What are you going to gain? Forgiveness is always better. And when you forgive, then in a sense, you've accepted the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in forgiveness. Because that's what He does all the time. We make so many mistakes within our life, and Allah continuously forgives us. But when we have to forgive someone, when someone says something wrong to us, or someone gives us an evil eye, or does something wrong, we'll be like, you know, I'm going to kill that guy. Happens all the time. If you go to university, you know, someone gives you evil eyes, looking at you, what are you looking at? What's your problem? See, some of us are smiling because we know it's true. See, that's the thing. You know, we need to be above this. We need to be better than that. He would never say anything unless he would never ask for anything unless he was asked for something. He wouldn't give anything in the sense that, sorry, that was wrong, but in the sense that, you know, when someone's asked for something, then he gives. But when the Prophet, he was never asked, he would give anyway. That's the Prophet. You know, many people know that this brother is in, you know, problems. Many people know that, oh, this brother, he's got problems within his life. Oh, this brother is struggling financially. Or, you know, there's been a death in his family, so why don't I go, instead of that person asking, why don't I go cook food for that person and give it to him or her? But we don't. Unless someone asks us, then we make moves. We make movements towards helping them. See, why do we always wait to do good deeds? This is the world that we live in, that, you know, we have to be asked to do good. And that's a very sad thing within our life. And when he ate from directly in front of him. Now, Allah, sometimes you're eating with brothers, right? And you know, you go wherever you go, you eat in the mosque, or you go to the restaurant, or wherever you eat, right? And the brother, you know, he wants ketchup. So the ketchup is like, you know, 2 people on that side. So instead of asking, he's going to go all the way across, put his hand out, not apologize, pick up the ketchup and carry on like nothing happened there. See, this is bad etiquette. You know, when you're eating, if you see something far away, then you ask the person next to you. The Prophet only used to eat directly from what was in front of him because he didn't want to trouble anyone else. See, within our life, have we been troubling people? See, we don't realize these things happen in our life until, you know, we reflect on these things. But we don't reflect anymore. The only thing we reflect on is, for example, you know, I have to be home at 7 o'clock to watch my sitcom. That's the only reflection that we have within our life. Even when we're driving our cars now, everyone's got automatic, so we don't have to think about, you know, gear changing anymore. So, you know, we're in a society where we have to think less. So it's something that we need to do, we need to think. He never slurped whilst drinking. You know, we have this big problem. You know, you drink anything and this guy's going, anything, what's this guy doing, man? Sort your life out. You know, what are you doing? So this is the thing, you know, we shouldn't be like that. Once again, this is bad akhlaq. And he would always use his right hand for drinking, taking anything and giving anything. Always use his right hand. So therefore, if we eat with our left hand, well, we know we should be eating with our right hand. He offered the lightest of prayers and made the shortest of speeches. Lightest of prayers. That when he was in the public, the Prophet recognized and realized that there's people in that congregation who can't stand up for a long time, who have bad backs, who have problems with their physical body. He used to offer the lightest of prayers. Private is a completely different story. In public, that he was like that. And he used to give the shortest of speeches. So therefore I apologize. I'm going on and on and on. Okay, but this is the thing, we need to learn from these things. And he preferred the right for all his affairs. If he came off the horse, he would come off the right side. If he came out of bed, he would come from the right side. So everything that he would do, always it would be from the right side. Why? Because we want the book in our right hand. So maybe if we do everything on the right side, inshallah, the book will also be on the right hand. When he spoke once. Sometimes within our life we see brothers and they're doing something wrong. We see, for example, sometimes we see someone that we know and we love and we're close to them and they don't pray, and we say, every time we see them, pray, 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 pray. If you keep telling someone, you're going to push them away. You tell them once. The Prophet said when he used to speak, he spoke once. You tell them once. You don't tell them 50, 100 million times in a day. Try to explain something to someone, but explain it to them once. If you see someone doing something wrong, say it to them once. Sometimes you tell people something, they ignore you completely. They hear you, but they ignore you. So why do we keep chasing these sort of people? You say it once. If they accept it, they accept it. If they don't, well, that's their loss, not yours. When he asked for permission, he asked 3 times. Whenever you go somewhere, whenever you do something, ask for permission. May I enter? Are you sure? Are you sure? Because sometimes some people are obliged. Say, can I enter? Of course you can. But then they're probably in the middle of something, they're doing something. Try to ask 2 or 3 times, because it shows good etiquette. His speech was clear, and he often said, the best of you are the best in morals. I don't know what else to tell you. I think that speaks very clearly for itself. The best of you are the best in morals. If our moral structure is no good, then we can't be the best of the people. So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. If you have no akhlaq and you don't know how to speak to people, and you don't know how to act with people, and you don't know how to act with yourself, then the reality is that you've wasted, indeed you're wasting your life, you're wasting your time. Or you can't waste time, you just waste yourself. So we need to focus on ourselves. We need to look to increase our spirituality and therefore increase our akhlaq. Everyone that talked about him said, I have not seen anyone like him before or after him. It's nothing we need to focus on. The Prophet of God, he was the best of mankind. See, why don't we take examples from his life? Why don't we read about his life? We're so busy reading Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling that we can't pick up the book of life of the Prophet. It's funny, but it's true. So busy reading things that don't really matter. They don't. But we rather focus on those than the life of the Prophet. And therefore, some of the other traits that he had was forbearance. And we mentioned all of these, but just to reiterate them in a story fashion. A Bedouin came to the Prophet, and as you know, the Prophet used to wear very rough materials. So he started to pull on the clothes of the Prophet, and it began to hurt the Prophet a lot. So when it hurt the Prophet a lot, he was in pain, and the Bedouin said, "Oh Muhammad, fill my 2 camels from the wealth of Allah, not from your wealth or the wealth of your father." To which the Prophet replied, "I am the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all his wealth is his, and none is mine." And then to that, the Prophet began to smile and said, "O Bedouin, the pain you have caused me, do you not think that I should avenge myself?" To which the Bedouin replied, I have heard, O Prophet, I have heard, O Muhammad, that you never answer bad with bad. So the Prophet smiled and gave him 2 camel loads of dates and wheat. So you find that this is the characteristics of the Prophet. You know, you look at the life of the Prophet, it's very simple in his life. And I'm about to wrap up as well. You know, it's very simple in his life. He used to sleep on a mat with 1 pillow, and that was it. To the extent that people and the Arabs of that community used to say that if Caesar and Khusro would never be happy to sleep like this, like the Prophet sleeps, unless they have silk and brocade. This is the life of the Prophet. It's not, you know, you look at the life and you want to take example from the life of the Prophet, and it's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, it's a hard life. But when you realize that this world is nothing, then everything becomes easy. But we have to train ourselves. We have to train ourselves to earn that mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore that's why the Prophet said, the example of this life is like a rider who passed by a tree that had a shadow. He sat under it. When the shadow turned away, he went and left the tree. That's life. That's what life is. You ask people that are 60, 70, you ask them about their life, they say, you know, oh, brother, I don't even know where it went. And therefore, you know, I'm going to leave you with this hadith that I think is very influential. When I was reading about it, it influenced me a lot, and also it's very influential in today's society. The hadith says that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, he says, the first thing which will fade away from this nation are honesty and chastity. So therefore, brothers and sisters, we ask you to raise your hands for dua. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to live the examples within our life of the examples of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to have akhlaq and to dwell into the different realms of akhlaq within our life. And inshallah, we pray that we are in the army of Imam Zaman, Ajjalallahu farajahu sharif. Allahumma salli ala.